I love Ufotable. Wait, really Ufotable? You too? And this was before the tax evasion. Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. Dai here, and today I want to cover CG in anime. More specifically, the 3D assets that go into animated productions. It's gotten a bad reputation as of late, but there's a lot to consider, so I hope you'll indulge me. Before diving into this, I want to mention the importance of hand-drawn animation. For many of us, it's why anime is so special, opposing the Hollywood CG juggernaut. That said, quality animation is expensive and taxing, made all the worse by the fact that Japan's animation industry treats animators quite terribly. Most animators flat out lack the wages to survive, even though they're just as much a part of the magic as directors, designers, and other executives in a studio. I've personally never approved of this, and I feel the corporate ladder needs to be rebalanced to acknowledge how important animators are. A boat doesn't need multiple captains, and a large vessel can't be sailed without the help of a crew. It's the same for anime. Not everyone can be a leader or director, and nobody could be without the means of production. It's all the worse when you realize just how profitable anime is, at least when you're factoring in merchandise, software, events, and whatnot. It's not necessarily the fandom's fault that animators get screwed like this. We offer plenty of money to the industry, and it just gets funneled upward. That's gotta stop. I'll be looking at various anime in this video, some breathtaking, others cringeworthy. While the state of the industry may play a role in these, I'm here more so to talk about visual aesthetics. Just because something is more economical doesn't mean it's more artistically pleasing. So yeah, we love 2D anime. It has a visual flair, a quality that no amount of polygons can effectively replace. But it would be foolish to deny the importance that computer-generated images have had on the industry, even in its infancy. The classics of anime were created in analog by printing line work to transparent cells that would then be painted on and photographed, frame by frame, onto film. This was the case until digital coloring went mainstream in the 2000s. But even before then, anime studios were experimenting with how 3D rendered models could assist in production. Arguably the most iconic example would be Initial D. The entire first season was made using a combination of traditional cell animation and fully digitized 3D for the racing shots. The few times when hand-drawn characters interacted with the 3D models in the same shot, those drawn assets were painted in digital, giving them a brighter, cleaner look. These moments looked awkward and could potentially pull viewers out of the experience. Regardless, it would have taken a monumental effort to bring Shuichi Shigeno's detailed manga to life without the use of CG. I think it's fair to say that if they had to draw the cars fluidly by hand, Initial D would never have aired. We're now at the point where Initial D just isn't the same without the 3D cars. We've grown fond of it. By the anime's second season, they dropped the traditional cell animation in favor of digital coloring. This made it much easier for animators to put human characters next to the 3D vehicles without much effort. Ultimately, this was destined to be the future for the series, but not all anime benefited from the early digital era. Digital production saved studios boatloads on resources, and many of them used this as a chance to cut costs even further. Not only that, but animators were still experimenting with how to best adapt to the new technology. Many anime of this time had a drastic drop in quality, as these frames lacked the complex shading, style, and texture that cells benefited from, making mediocre productions that much worse. At the same time, video game graphics, particularly for anime-themed games, were seeing a huge upgrade with the PlayStation 2. Techniques like cell shading on 3D models allowed video games to look more and more like anime. We reached a point where video game visuals genuinely looked better than their 2D counterparts. Naturally, this gave animation studios the idea of making entire anime using only 3D technology. This inspiration led to the film Appleseed, which made quite the splash when it first released. I'm sure some people questioned whether this was the future of anime. Now, I love Appleseed. It's very fun, and the path it took through movies is quite stunning. But I'm still glad this didn't become the norm. While we've had many 3D anime since, and video games just keep getting more visually impressive, the demand for 2D anime has yet to die. Now that we've moved beyond the early digital era, anime is produced in full, vibrant HD, and animators have conquered digital art. The marriage of stunning 2D drawings and 3D models is better than ever before. Most of the time, I'm a huge advocate for CG, at least as it pertains to inorganic objects. Locations, vehicles, mecha, all of these look great in 3D, and animating them as such has brought with it some phenomenal visuals. So where does the CG hatred in the community come from? I personally think it comes down to two things. We hate it when studios use CG as a shortcut, and that CG doesn't work very well for organic assets, such as people and animals. In both cases, they confront a rather obvious truth. CG does not look like anime. Characters in anime are often animated at 12 frames per second, sometimes even less. While episodes are finished in 24 frames per second, the characters typically only move every other frame. This is pretty jagged, but animators have mastered working with this restriction, using exaggerated poses and distortions to generate believable, impactful movement. It's become part of how hand-drawn anime looks as a style. To make a CG character move like that, animators have to go out of their way to make their animations look less smooth. For fully 3D worlds, this can have a nice effect, such as the Sword Art Online video game cutscenes, but it's still clear as day that they aren't drawn by hand. It's still too smooth and clean, whereas hand-drawn animation is inevitably more chaotic and variant. I think that's a huge reason Shield Heroes monsters look particularly bad, as well as the infamous dragon scene from Dean Stay Night. Because CG models stand out so much for being too rigid and clean, we find it very easy to tell when studios use them to cut corners. This is most often seen in crowds. The main characters, who are in the foreground, will have very basic, often lifeless CG crowds to occupy the screen. If the camera were far enough away from them, the CG characters wouldn't look odd, but far too often are they too close to the frame, clashing with whatever 2D drawings are present. If you can tell it's CG, then it's a problem. Admittedly, this hybrid style of animation, at least for organic characters, was popularized by the promo vids for Love Live. When they first released, I was impressed. They'd use 2D for the close-ups and 3D from a distance, which I thought was smart. Now though, every time I watch them, I find myself turned off by the obvious difference between the two. Because idol dances are so damn hard to draw by hand, even though they look brilliant, studios constantly lean on their ability to just motion capture the entire thing. Perhaps this is more so an issue with the quality of those 3D models. They tend to be less expressive than their drawings. But if you look at games like Idolmaster Stella Stage, you'll see some of the best anime CG around. This game still blows my mind. I'd say it's the closest CG has come to expressing the appeal of anime. The issues of CG anime are subverted, however, in Hoseki no Kuni, or Land of the Lustrous. Because the gems aren't technically organic, their somewhat choppy animation actually leads to the show's appeal. Furthermore, it takes advantage of dynamic lighting in a way that the manga can't even manage. So yeah, CG anime can be done properly, but there are still improvements to be made. An interesting example from this current season is the anime Given, which uses CG exclusively for the hands playing guitar. By being very critical with the color scheme and lighting, the 3D hands don't stand out too much unless you're really looking for them. That's enough out of me though. What about you? Is CG the future of the industry? Or should studios limit its use as much as possible? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this channel, help me beat the algorithm by liking, commenting, and sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and most of all, smashing that notification bell as if it were your waifu. That way you'll never miss out on all of my anime content, lore videos, live streams, and Holy Waifu Wars polls. My vids are struggling to get featured, so that bell is absolutely critical. If you want to support me directly, check out my Patreon, or consider donating via Super Chat. And as always, celebrate your fandom.